All right, ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure it is to try this out for the first time with a very, very special guest. You know, from her amazing work, obviously, on all the UFC broadcasts, the one and only Laura Sanko is here to help us break down UFC 303. Laura, welcome to the program. It's great to have you.
Here as always. This is reminiscent of the old days when I used to do some post wrap ups with you. It's actually not that late. It's late to my body because I lived on a different time.
Yeah.
There's no one that I would do this for except for you. So here we are.
Listen, I appreciate it. And let's get right into it because you
Yeah.
just finished up speaking to the champ himself, Alex Pereira, in the back after a crazy knockout over Jiri. Just got to get your thoughts straight away. When you're standing in the back there, before we even get into the fight, what was the feeling that you got from him standing next to him after this victory? Because he's not one of those people that he's not an everyday type of person. He's one of those
Yeah.
once in a lifetime kind of alien types where you're like, is this guy really a human? What kind of feel did you get from him? What kind of vibe did you get from him? And did you notice anything different after this particular win?
I don't know that I noticed anything, but when he's in interview mode, he doesn't really even, he won't look at you. And it's part of, I think, has built this aura around him. But the biggest thing that you have to do to have an aura is go out there and deliver sensational, frightening knockouts, which is exactly what he did tonight. But yeah, it was an interesting interview. I learned a few tidbits for sure.
Yeah, what did you learn? Give us a little taste.
I think the biggest thing that I took away is that they kind of came up with that switch kick plan in the locker room beforehand, and it was off of something that I believe Plinio saw on social media, and they were kind of just scrolling as you do, and they saw footage of Yuri warming up, and
Wow.
yeah, and kind of had this idea that he was so focused on the calf kick that the head kick would be there when they wanted it to be. And that was kind of course, he's always had a head kick, but that was where that idea was sort of planted, and we saw him go out and just execute on it beautifully.
I got to ask you before we actually get into the fight. That stare down
Yeah.
at the start, it went for almost 5 minutes. You had Yuri in the middle. He was just kind of standing there, like I can't even stand like this for 4.5 minutes because
No.
my back is so cooked. And then you had Alex. He's just staring at him, and like
Yeah.
the people haven't tried to do this because I've tried to do this in the past, but legally, nothing dodgy on the tram or something like that when people are going into work. But you can't stare at a person like that, naturally. What did you think of that? And that's some serious skill there from Alex for just standing there and staring. That no, I don't even think he blinked.
I don't know that he blinked either. I tried to find a moment where he looked human, and I couldn't find one. But that was what we were talking about in the back as we were watching it. I dare anyone to try that at home and try it with an actual person, not just in the mirror. The mirror would be hard enough. Try to hold eye contact, focused eye contact with another person for that long. It is exhausting. That's what's crazy to me, is that it's mentally draining, but not to these guys because they're so accustomed to having that high level of focus. But yeah, I feel like we now look forward to that stare down almost as much as the fights themselves. It's special.
Yeah, his entrance, the stare down. There's so much about him to look forward to. Just speaking of Yuri, though, he came in. It wasn't his night. Obviously, in that first fight, he had some success when he got Alex down. People thought, will he try to maybe follow up on that success with a bit of a game plan?
Mhm.
But Yuri's not known for his game plans. He's known for the way of the samurai, moving forward and just doing his thing. But ultimately, what did you think of what he brought in there? I mean, you can't fault the guy for trying to kind of put on an exciting fight, but at the same time,
Of
you also
course.
wonder if he used his full skill set, if it could look a little bit different.
I think he was really long and hard about trying to find the moments to get takedowns, but they were not presenting themselves in a way that allowed him to capitalize on them, again because the leg kick was just such a factor for him. And I don't know if it was as much of a factor as it was in the first fight. It just takes split seconds to hesitate in looking for an opportunity to level change where you change your mind. And you say, I'll just feint a few times, throw a few shots out there. That opportunity
Yeah.
will present itself again to me, and you end up, what DC always calls, you end up taking pictures. You kind of end up being there, but not really able to operate in the way that you had envisioned initially. And that's credit to Alex for doing that to Jiri.
By the way, I love Joe Rogan, how he loves the idea of Alex Pereira at heavyweight, right? I don't like he's basically in the octagon making it happen for Alex and the fans, and Dana White's a little like, and he's like, come on, Dana, heavyweight, let's go, get Alex out there. What do you think though? Because he's got 2 titles now in 2 different divisions in a short period of time. First of all, if he's able to make it up to heavyweight and actually get this 3rd title, what does that make Alex Pereira in your mind? I mean, we've never seen it happen before, right? 3 titles, 3 divisions in such a short span.
Unbelievable. It changes the whole conversation about what, how we define these things, right? Very big if this happened, he would be the first 3 division champion ever, period. So the fact that he would even spark a conversation tells you how big of a deal that is to potentially have someone even, to take a shot at John Jones's status as GOAT. I think pound for pound is probably the more interesting and relevant question, but to your initial setup in terms of heavyweight, I love it. I love it. I'm here for it. I love it partly because I don't feel great about his chances. I feel good about them, but I don't feel great about them. And it really depends on who it would be, right? That is probably the biggest factor. But if you picture him against a John, if you picture him against anybody, I think there's some really interesting outcomes that could take place. But I am always going to be in favor. The Tom Aspinall fight. Sorry, the Tom Aspinall fight would be insane. I'm always in favor of someone being allowed to chase greatness. And I will never, I don't think we as fans could ever fault them for when they do that and things don't quite shake out the way that they want them to. But you have to, the opportunity. The light heavyweight, I loved that for him. It didn't work out for him, but it didn't change how I looked at him as a middleweight. And that the same would be true of Alex Pereira. I don't think it would take anything away from him if he took a loss at heavyweight. And what if he did it? What if he did it? What then? We have to allow him to explore that, I think.
I feel like he's the guy that could lure John Jones out for another fight down the track, do you think?
I agree, because I think that John, rightfully so, is going to be very picky about who his opponents are from now until eternity, however long that lasts, whether that's 1 fight, 2 fights, 3 fights. I don't know that it gets much longer than that. And I think this is the type of enticement that John would really, really enjoy, because I think John would like his chances. I think John would like to play spoiler to someone trying to steal his shine, someone trying to enter that GOAT conversation. He wants to shut the door. I love it.
Let's quickly talk about another fight that people didn't really know what was going to happen in an MVP and Ian Garry. An interesting one. Dana White in the press conference said he kind of even saw it as a draw. It was this bit of a strange one. We always know that fighting MVP, though, is incredibly difficult because of his style. It's never that easy for certain people to match up with him, and fights can look a bit strange. I wonder, what did you think of Ian Garry? I guess there's an aspect to his performance where he was able to switch up his game plan and figure out a way to get the win. At the same time, a lot of fans felt like they were a little bit disappointed with the way the fight went, and a little bit disappointed with just how it played out.
Well, it was the intelligent way to approach fighting MVP. And I listen, Ian Garry's in a very precarious spot in a good sense. He's got a lot of pressure on him to live up to his own expectations, the promises that he's made the fan base about, his greatness. So in order to live up to those, you have to continue to win. terms of like actual, we want to win this fight advice, was telling Ian Garry, you got to grapple him. You gotta make this a high friction type of fight, because I don't know that I think maybe he perhaps said it after the fact, but anyone that is going to come out and say that they have a speed advantage over MVP is just lying to themselves. They're lying to themselves, and they need to know that on the inside, because it was evident that Ian Garry was at a speed disadvantage. Ian Machado Garry, I should say, was at a speed disadvantage. So I felt like he did the right thing. Was it the most exciting thing? Not necessarily, but there was enough excitement. I mean, I think he showed off some pretty interesting submission attempts, honestly.
Yeah, and he took a lot of shots. I got to ask, with MVP, we saw some openings in his ground game. There are a few things that he did. I'm not like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu professor. I've done all the same stuff myself. He tried to escape the wrong way when he was on the ground.
Yeah.
He wasn't really fighting the wrists. He kind of put himself into a bad position with Ian on his back. I mean, there's a lot of spots there where you can just be like, hey, let's work these areas, let's fix this up before the next one. But what do you think of the showing that he had here? Because the Kevin Holland fight, fans were a little bit, that was a little bit weird for fans, because they're just used to seeing him knock people out in Bellator. And now here we go again, where he had a couple of nice moments there. He was able to really sort of land some nice shots, but also showed a few openings and a few of the aspects in his skills, I guess.
Yeah, he definitely showed a little bit of lack of depth in terms of the details of the ground game. And I think anybody that really appreciates the fine art of jiu-jitsu is going to spot those. There are still plenty of really interesting, fun fights for MVP on the UFC roster. He's got the truth of the matter is he needs the right stylistic matchup, and then the fan base is going to. I mean, I think they already love him, but they're going to understand what the big deal was about when he came over to the UFC. If the section of fan base that doesn't also watch Bellator is like, what's the big deal here? They're going to find out as soon as he spends some time in the octagon with the right stylistic matchup, because he's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't get this matchup at all, honestly. Like, you got MVP here.
Yeah.
He's 37 years old. You can have fun fights. Book the guy in a bunch of fun fights. You got Ian Garry. He's a prospect. Both guys losing just doesn't seem like it's great for the organization. But I get it. In the UFC, you got to fight the best at all times. It's just sometimes, when we watch boxing and things like that, it's like, they know how to book people. Okay, so Dana White was talking to the press a little bit about Colby Covington, Ian Garry. Someone asked if that's the next fight. He kind of alluded to maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Got to ask you, is that the next fight that you want to see for Ian Garry? And if that's the fight, what would your early pick in that one be?
I do like that fight for Ian Garry. I liked it more than this one, to be honest with you. I actually, goodness, I think before Colby's last performance, I maybe would have felt differently. Man, you're really putting me on the spot here, Dennis.
Hey, listen, this is the reaction show. We're live. We're live,
This is why I think I'm a decent enough analyst, because I'm so good at playing both sides of the fence. I'm so good at seeing what could play out this direction and what could play out this direction.
Yeah.
But it also makes me terrible at like really settling on what I think about how I really think the fight would go.
Are you having trouble seeing it go for one person in a specific direction when you think about it?
Well, I'm trying to envision. I think Colby would take him down, because I think he would get him down. But now I'm trying to imagine, would Ian Garry be able to get back up or mount some sort of offense off of his back? Because I do think he would get put on his back. I don't know. I think maybe I do like Colby in that fight. But the striking exchanges, Ian Garry can be a sniper. He can be a real sniper. I think the experience of Colby, the wrestling of Colby, I might favor him early in this process. If this is where you're forcing me to.
Hey, look, from my perspective, it just depends, again, what you said about what kind of Colby Covington we get. We know with Colby's striking, it could be at high volumes, and he could tire people out, and then he'll get the takedown. So he could be quite devastating there. It's going to be fascinating, though, as well, in the build-up to that. Can Colby get into Ian's head? How does all that play out? Will that make Ian's strategy change in that octagon, depending on what happens? Yeah. It's an interesting fight. I'd love to see it happen. I want to also quickly talk about Dan Ige. I mean, This is unbelievable. You have someone step up onto a fight card like hours before the thing happens. You have you guys, the production people, everybody. From your perspective, did you see what the production people were doing? Like, how did they get that package together so quickly? What were they doing?
No, he was in the show open
Unbelievable.
graphic. If you saw the fact that they got, I mean, that was like minutes after they announced it. Obviously, they knew before it was announced on television, but they probably only knew maybe an hour before the general public did. Crazy, absolutely crazy turn of events. Dan Ige is, I mean, the balls on that man. The balls on that man. Manscaped would be all over it.
Well, hey, speaking of Manscaped, I really want to bring, that's great that you brought them up, actually. If you guys want to support the program, check out the beard trimmer. Check out this beard trimmer here, Laura. I'm going for a French-Ukrainian look for our chat today. All thanks to
Nailing it.
Manscaped. And of course, what I can't show on camera, the Lawnmower 5.0, which I also use to shave these eyebrows down. I have a monobrow. So code word submission, 20% off and free shipping now. This show is presented by Manscaped. Very, very happy to be working with those guys. But just quickly, speaking of highlights of the night, I just want to quickly look back on Michelle Waterson, because this is a person that has really contributed a lot to the game of MMA. And I guess my problem with MMA these days, because I'm like Grandpa Simpson, is like, you fans don't know half of the things that these people have done. But she's really put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the game. Your reaction to her retiring tonight, and what has she meant to you personally as a fight fan, as someone involved in the business and a fighter yourself?
I remember before she was even in Invicta, I was stalking her on like the message boards because she was one of the few atom weights that I could look up to. She was a pro already. I was just starting to train and fight around 2006, 2007. So she and Megumi Fuji and like literally two other people were the ones that I looked to as the example of.
She said she didn't know who she would be if she wasn't a fighter, right? In that octagon, something like that. It was really sad to hear, yeah.
I'm happy. I'm happy to hear that she answered that question for herself. You know, that she will always be a fighter. You fight in different ways and you fight in different things, and you will always literally be a fighter. That doesn't go away when you stop doing it active. More than just being a UFC fighter. She's a mom. She's a wife. She's an inspiration to a whole generation of other fighters. And most importantly, you know, to her daughter. And yeah, not to get too sappy, but I think she's an incredible example of what it is to be a mom and a fighter at the same time, which is a really tough thing to do. Really tough.
And you were on the forums, you were looking her up, you were looking at her as an inspiration, and then here you are in the back of UFC 303, and one of the final moments in her career. That's got to be pretty special for you.
Yeah, it was cool. I got really choked up, honestly, because I remember when she won the Invicta Atomweight title. That was, you know, to me, that was okay. This is who I aspire to be. You know, I'm starting my Atomweight Invicta journey, and I want to be like the champ. So yeah, I wanted to be just like Michelle Waterson. And people, this is one thing I will say, and we get off the topic, but people need to understand and watch her career in the UFC and realize that she was never really even in her right weight class. If they had atom weight, now I understand she framed up to 115, but if they had atom weight, I don't know. Just, it's interesting to think of how things maybe could have been for her.
Well, you know, cheers to Michelle. A sip of coffee for
Some
all the incredible stuff that she's done. And I can't wait to see what's next. I know Dana said that she's always welcome, but I'd love to see her as a part of the team doing different stuff and continuing her legacy that way. As we finish up, just quickly, Peyton Talbott, unbelievable. 19-second KO, 3 finishes in 3 UFC fights, and the hair of a beautiful gazelle. What are we thinking about this kid here? He's 25, but he looked like he surfed into the octagon and then ollied out of the ring, and then he's down to the 7-Eleven. Just
ollied out of the ring.
Hey kids, this is me now. It's hey kids, yeah. The surf's up, kids. What's going on? I'm Dennis. I'm not 35. What do you think of this KO? And what are you expecting from this guy? Unbelievable, 19 seconds.
Well, he's doing all the right things. I mean, the toughest thing you can do coming off the Contender Series is live up to your own hype. And he is doing that. And then yet, I think he's got a tremendous skill set and he's got a tremendous mind, and he's just a different cat. I mean, you talk to this kid, and I'm always like, I'm not a naturally good television interviewer. I'm a naturally curious person. Like I genuinely want to know about people. So when I meet guys like him, I want to know. And he literally, I can't remember what question I asked him one time. I was like, I think I said, what about you would you like people to understand better? Something like that. He's like, I'm not meant to be understood. I'm meant to be observed. Just that out right to my face. I was like, all right, Peyton, I don't know what to do.
Talbott, nevermore.
I don't know you.
This guy's from the Breakfast Club. Is he from the Breakfast Club, the 2024 Breakfast Club? What's going on?
That might be the best take of the evening. Forget all your amazing analysis. That right there, that's the best take of the evening.
Oh, man. Well, Laura, we won't forget about you. Sanko. Guys, make sure to follow Laura Sanko and all her incredible journey on social media. I appreciate you joining me. Incredible job tonight. Congratulations again on all the incredible stuff that you're doing, Laura. You're one of the best, and thanks so much for joining me on this first one. It really means a lot to me. Even though there's been about a million technical issues, I love you for joining me. Thank you so much.